schools, for example. We could have one of the things I've suggested to the White House, both under the Trump administration and also under the Biden administration, is starting a male teacher corps in which men are trained to be teachers, particularly in dad-deprived areas, school districts, and they get free scholarships. They get full scholarships for college, but yet in exchange for that full scholarship for college, they have to serve 3 or 4 years as a teacher in a school district that has few male teachers. The way that I've suggested it is that you don't just get males like me. I consider myself more of a nurturer, connector male. You also get more traditional males, so that no matter who your son is, if you've grown up in a home without a male role model in the home, without a biological father, particularly in the home, that your son, no matter what he's prone toward, what his unique self is, that he's able to go to school
to find a role model.
Find a role model that is not just another nurturer, connector male, but a construction worker, or a man that's retired from more of a profession that was more traditional, like a logger or whatever, firefighter, and that your son is able to see that possibility, and then also the nurturer, connector male as a possibility, and so that those things be offered. Another suggestion that I think is by far the most important one that I made to both administrations is the importance of creating a father warrior program, WARR.
So this sounds great. So why the hell don't you have any traction with Trump or with Biden? Because that pretty much exhausts the options. So what's going on?
Well, with Trump, the Trump administration said they were very excited about it. They asked me to write up a speech that Trump would give, and he never gave it. And so, with
any idea why? I mean, you'd think it would have been useful to him. You'd think, given his constituency.
I would have thought it would have been 100% useful to him. I made the case that there are about 20 million parents that have children, boys rather, that are in failure to launch mode in some way, shape, or form, and that these mothers care more about their sons than they care about their party label. That this could open an entire...
Or themselves, maybe even.
Yes, exactly. And I said this to both the Biden administration and the Trump administration. The Biden administration was at least, the 14 people that I met with at the White House and with HHS, they said they were all, to a person, extremely enthusiastic. With the Democrats, I've gotten much more of a resistance. When the White House Council on Gender Policy was created, and I objected to that, not including boys and men and fathers, and said that you couldn't possibly say you were in favor of diversity and inclusion when you excluded fathers and boys and men. And then they said that
it's only 50% of the population.
Yes, or 49%, whatever. But it's one thing if you just say boys and men are not important. It's another thing to say I'm in favor of diversity and inclusion, and then to say that the second mission of the Gender Policy Council is to have racial justice, and not understand that racial justice that the single biggest group of people who are having challenges in the culture are Black males. And if you go to a city,
which is a prime example of the intersectionality that's being touted as crucial to the development of our entire culture.
Yes, and here,
it's the prime example, perhaps. I want to close because I know we've exhausted you. Why did you receive such? I would like to know why you think you didn't get more traction with the Trump people, but then I would like you to tell me what's up with the Democrats. Why did you get rejected so out of hand when you put forward these perfectly reasonable propositions, which in principle should be in accordance with what they're claiming to support?
Yes, even the Trump people, this is what I'm going to say now, is tenfold this issue with the Biden people. But even the Trump people were fearful that the single mother would feel criticized, and they were afraid of losing the support from her. And so that was what I heard behind the scenes, was the gap between it being very much recommended by the people that I spoke with versus actually having a presentation delivered by Trump. The other thing was that they were fearful that it would call attention to Trump's failed marriages and his womanizing, and they didn't want to open that door. So those were the two
Okay.
things I
Okay.
heard about
Okay.
on the Trump side. From the Biden side, well, the best example of this is when I went to Iowa and I interviewed 9 of the presidential candidates that were Democrats. And most of them were very excited, especially Andrew Yang and Senator Hickenlooper, John Hickenlooper, were very excited about what I was saying. Andrew Yang already had a mastery of what was what the problems were with boys. He was on the tip of maybe being able potentially to talk about the issue. When I finished talking with both Andrew Yang and Hickenlooper, especially with Andrew Yang, the female campaign manager came up to me and said, "I'm sorry, Warren, we just cannot have him talk about these issues. This will alienate our feminist base. This will alienate women who are single moms. It will not, and we want also many of the women who are divorced. We want them not to feel that they won't have the choice of going off and starting a new life and bringing their children to a new location with a new man." And so we are afraid of losing those two.
Yes, well, and to hell with the old man.
Yes. And so it was really, and they were honest with me. That's the good news. The bad news is they were, this was the case. And so when the Biden administration created the White House Gender Policy Council, which was a day or two before he was actually inaugurated, and it was focused on women and girls, and and both Black women and girls and white women and girls. I protested and talked with Jen Klein, who's the co-chair, about this many times. And her only answer over and over again was, "Warren, President Biden cares about men and boys. Warren, President Biden cares about the fathers." And my response, my constant hammering of her about, well, then it should be written into the White House Gender Policy Council to create these father warrior programs, to create these programs, of dozens of which I suggested, that could increase and improve the lives of boys and men. And I was met with no answer, like just.
So what's the problem? What's the problem as far as you're concerned? We might as well have it right out. What the hell's going on?
In Jen Klein's case, and in the feminist, in the liberal political leadership, and the Democrats, it is just a fundamentally and totally honest belief that women have it worse than men. That boys and men, and the constant image that comes up for the political liberals is, Warren.
Right. So it's the classification of the world by sex that's the problem. It isn't who has problems and how do we help them. It's the classification first and the problem second.
We live in a patriarchal world dominated by men who made the rules to benefit men at the expense of women. The proof of that, Warren, is that look at who's at the top of the political ladder. Look at who's the top of the corporate ladder. Look at who's the top of even the religious ladder.
Right. So it's right back to where we started, which is identify that tiny minority of men who are hyper successful, generalize that to the masculine universe at large, and to hell with those that are in the middle or the bottom, which is, so what is that, hypergamy in female politics? Is it the same thing?
And it is not the realization that the men at the top are often at the top. They're earning that more money, not because they feel more fulfilled or this is their choice. They felt obligated to earn money that somebody else spent while they died sooner.
Right. So it's not even true for the people who have the privilege, much less true for men anywhere else on the hierarchy.
Correct. And when I say to them things like, it isn't male privilege. Do you consider it male privilege for every generation during their war to train the boys and the men to be the ones that died in war so that you could be protected and saved? And it's just like closed mouth. What about the legislation?
That's become a real issue in Korea.
Yes.
In South Korea.
Actually, I didn't know that.
Yes. Yes, there are no shortage of men who are not thrilled about the fact that they are conscripted for 2 years and the women aren't. Now, my sense is, well, the women pay their dues in childbirth and pregnancy, and, but nonetheless, it's an issue, and it's producing no shortage of resentment and friction among young Koreans.
And here in the United States, it's still the law which is probably the most unconstitutional law that most violates the 14th Amendment's equal protection laws, it is still the law in the United States that your son who's 18 must register for the draft. If he doesn't, could be fined $250,000. He can be put in prison for a year or two. In 42 states, he can lose his driver's license if he doesn't register for the draft. And there's a whole series of he can never go to a school that gets federal money, which is virtually every school, including private schools. This is all the punishment that men your son has if he's 18 and doesn't register for the draft. The punishment for females is 0 because they don't have to register for the draft. They have the option to
So
join.
what do you